about speaking and why our stories matter and how to share that. So PJ, I'm going to just hand it off to you. And so we will be recording this for the ladies who have signed up but could not make it live on the Zoom today. And we're Fave Lifestyles. And so we'll be connecting with all the ladies here who have signed up. And so take it away, PJ.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be, I always admire everyone in Fave, and so it's an honor to be here today. I do have a PowerPoint, so let me just switch to that real quick. I am a firm believer that some of us are better at learning visually, so it's nice to have visual and audio, right? And so still trying to get everybody in here from the waiting room, so we'll do that real quick. All right, and hopefully, can you see my screen? Did it come up okay?
Yes.
Cool, it's the first time I've ever used Canva for a PowerPoint, so I was excited to do that if you've never tried that. So my name's PJ Hanks, and my gift is teaching people in a very simple way about wellness and about business solutions. And I'm here to help people find hope, discover solutions, and achieve goals. So today I'm going to tell you a bit about how to write your story, because your story matters. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to discover that and how to summarize your story. There is, it's always nice to have a structure to do that, and I'm going to give you that structure. Now, Karen has already emailed you, I believe, a PDF file that has all the notes. So everything I'm going to show you, every slide is in those notes. So you don't feel like you have to write down a zillion things today, because everything will, I basically took the PowerPoint from the handout. So that always makes me feel good. But it is good if you have a notebook and a piece of paper to write some things down and your thoughts about some things. So let's get started here. So your story really matters. And you know that everyone has a story that can change someone else's life, including you. And just think about all the people in your life who, when you've heard their story, your life is all of a sudden changed, or you find hope, or you find a solution, right? And all of us have had experiences in our life that have given us a story that we can change someone else's life. And I think that's why Fave is such a wonderful place to be, because we share so much with each other. So the thing is that finding and refining that story so that it reaches and touches the right audience can help you reach those you're intended to serve. I firmly believe that we're all here to serve certain individuals. And when we find those individuals, or we're connected with those individuals, we want to be able to tell and say what we need to say to them so it touches them, right? That's when we have a successful connection with someone. And so spending time to find and refine that story can make all the difference in the world. And so, I'm going to go through some facts about your story, and then I'm going to give you some questions that will help you, and a format to help you kind of write that. So first of all, the story is not necessarily your entire life story. This is going to be a 2-minute story. So you don't tell your whole life story. It's what we call an episodic story. It's about something in your life that changed your life. And there were events leading up to that episode. There's an episode, and then there are changes that happened because of that episode. So for example, I have one of my clients gave me permission to tell you her 2-minute story, because it's a very powerful story. And I think that you'll see that it has a little touch of a life, but not really. It's more about some episodes. So if you'll just, this is her 2-minute story. She said, I grew up in a farm in rural South Dakota. I used to take the bus to school every day. And at the age of 10, I began to experience trauma on a regular basis during those bus rides. And by the time I reached high school, I had near constant feelings of anxiety. After high school, I signed up to join the military. And on graduation night, when everyone else was partying and saying their goodbyes, I was very badly assaulted. I was left with no time to emotionally deal with this because 48 later, I had to be on a plane to New Jersey to begin my basic training. And then 2 years later, while sitting in a college dorm room, I received a call that that my medical unit was being called up and we were to serve in Desert Storm in the Persian Gulf. So my job there was a combat medic, and we were there to give medical care to the frontline troops. I was the one who put individuals on helicopters to go to the medical triage unit. So after 1 year, I returned home. So stress can literally change your DNA, as I learned. And over time, you can experience many different things. The PTSD I experienced from all of these traumas gave me feelings of anxiety and depression, and some days it was hard to get out of bed. My self-esteem was very low, and I had no confidence and no happiness. I couldn't understand why my life was this way. And then one day, a friend invited me to a hot yoga class. And suddenly, I found a glimmer of hope as I sat on that floor. I actually felt better, not only in my body, but in my mind. And from this point on, I immersed myself in learning everything I could about natural wellness. And gradually the days brightened and my mind and body began to feel better. Later, my friend invited me to participate in a stress study where for 1 week I was to use natural solutions and gauge my response. I couldn't believe it, how good they made me feel. I wasn't expecting them to have a profound effect and to keep working such time I took them. It's hard to convey how grateful I feel that there are simple tools to take you from trauma to relief. No drugs, no side effects, and no addiction, just relief. That's her story. So do you find that moving? Do you want to talk to her more? So a really good story will make someone, when you tell it, want to go, can we get together? I want to learn more. I want to know more. This is a person that I need to touch base with. So if you were to be in a room with a lot of, really people you respect, like let's say maybe even Tony Robbins, and he walks up and he says, tell me your story. Well, you're only going to get a couple minutes of his time for you to tell your story to him, but you want this story to matter. So if you have that story down, you can tell him that. And what you want him to do is say, I'd like to talk more to you about that. Let's set up a time. And that's the purpose of having a 2-minute story about an episode in your life that can change people's lives. Now, discovering that story takes some digging, and refining the story to a message is how you change other people's lives. And I have found, as I have worked with a lot of clients and helping them write their story, that it's often a different story than you think. The episode is often the same, but when you start digging, you find out that there were more things contributing to it. And we want to make sure that we emotionally touch people. So as you're discovering your story, you need to be really open-minded. You may find that your best message is more compelling than the one you've been telling. And a good refined message that will get others to listen to you should be refined to a 2-minute message. There's actually some brain study in all of that. The people will give you about 2 minutes to tell them your story. And so you want it to just have that punch, right? So the refined message is actually divided into 3 parts. So this is an important structure. Now, for those of you who came on a little late, you did get in your email a PDF that has all of the slides that I'm giving you. It has them all in a 2-page handout. So you don't feel like you have to write down all these things. Just write down what's in your heart and what comes to your mind. So the first part is what events and experiences led to the episode. You want to keep that to 2 or 3 things. And you want to make it and be able to say it in 45 seconds. You'll be surprised at what you can say in 45 seconds. And then what was the episode? What happened to change things? What was the pivot? And you have about 30 seconds to tell that. And then the last part of your story structure is, how did life change after the episode? Like for my friend, this client that I read to, her episode was when she went to that, things began to change when she went to hot yoga. And then the real change came when she found some natural solutions to add on with that. So how did life change after that? You want to, it's really best if you take the 2 or 3 things you talked about in the events or experiences that led up to it and talk about how those 2 or 3 things changed. And again, you have 45 seconds. So there's your 2-minute story, is structuring that down. Now, once your message is refined, my advice is that you memorize it so that you can tell it to anyone without going off script. And the reason for that is I work with a lot of clients and helping them come up with their story. And then I'm in situations where I hear them tell their story and inevitably they go off script. And what happens when you go off script is you tend to miss the key points. And the way our mind plays is that we start adding extra things in, or we're so worried that the person won't get the message. And yet you spent all that time refining this amazing message. So I always tell people, if fortunately, while we're on Zoom, it's easy to read it to people, but if you're ever in person, you want to be able to say, you've said it enough that it just comes out. Now, your refined message can be expanded into a longer story for podcasts, speaking events, etc. You can have 2 stories. For example, those in network marketing might have a story about the product line and a story about the business opportunity. Or you might have a story, if you have a couple aspects to your business, you may have one story you tell in one situation, and then another story that you tell in another crowd. And that's okay. You just want to make sure that you have them memorized well enough that you don't accidentally interchange the 2, so that your points are right on for each group. You can also use part of or your full story as part of your LinkedIn bio, or an e-business card, or on your Instagram bio. So a lot of the people I coach in business, we don't move to creating our LinkedIn. We don't move into Instagram. We don't worry about setting any of that up till this story is written, because the story is kind of what drives the entire part of your business, right? So let's now talk about questions that you can go through in discovering your story. And like I said, these are all on the 2-page handout, which is available to you. But let's kind of go through these. And this is what I recommend, is that you take some time when you can be just quiet and listen. I will tell you that often you'll know that you've kind of hit on this true story when you start digging into what led up to it, and it makes you a little emotional. Often that emotion is gratitude that it led you to what happened. But I usually find when I help people walk right there and discover their story and write it, that I know we've hit on it when there's some emotion. And so sometimes what you think is your story and you want it to sound all pretty, don't worry about that. First, go through and answer these questions. So get a journal, get a notebook, and just really ponder these questions so that when you finalize that story, it has the right pieces in it. Now, so for the first question is, what do you believe was a pivoting moment in your life that by sharing can actually serve others? Now, I'm hoping I should have some time. I'm going to actually, if it's okay, if someone wants to volunteer, we'll come back and go through all these questions, and I'll actually, in a short amount of time, help someone put a bit of their story together if somebody wants to be the person who gets to have a little coaching today. So, what was it? Was it a time when you, like my friend, went to hot yoga class and all of a sudden you began to find relief after years of stress and anxiety? Was it a divorce? Was it the loss of a family member or a loved one? So it doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's a simple thing. You were sitting and all of a sudden you had an aha moment. And then why was it a pivoting moment? What made it so pivoting for you and life-changing? And then the third question is, what was your life like before that pivoting event or episode? Think about all the emotional aspects of it, all the different things. Just write it all down. And you don't have to write it out pretty, just write notes, write it down. But what were the things that happened? Was there stress? Was there anxiety? Was there loss of money? Was there all these different things that might have happened? Were you homeless? Were you ill? All the different things that led up to the pivoting event in the episode. And then the fourth question is, what was your life like after the pivoting event or episode? What began to change and what did you experience because of that pivoting event or episode? Now, it's ideally really nice if you can look back at all the things that happened prior to that and find kind of the opposite of what happened to them. So, for example, part of my story is that 10 years ago, I found myself being diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I was so miserable, I could barely get up out of bed to do my work each day. And I was so exhausted. And the worst part was brain fog. And when I found some solutions for that, which was my pivoting moment, and that pivoting moment wasn't just one thing. It actually took me about 6 months to kind of turn things around. I then had energy. My brain fog disappeared. I could travel again. I had all those things. So I could and I have experiences about each one of those. So when you're looking at how was life different after the episode or the event, think about what you're describing before it. How did those things change? In my case, the thought of even getting on in the car, let alone getting on an airplane to travel the world, was incomprehensible. And yet after I went through that experience, I flew all over the world to teach about business and stuff. I've been to China, I've been to London, I have a large group in South Africa. So that's the balancing of what happened in that pivoting moment. Number 5, what makes you get out of bed in the mornings? Why do you get out of bed and go do the work that you do or serve the people that you serve? It's kind of good to know that, right? 6, why would anyone care that you got out of bed in the morning? What is it about the experience that you've had that somebody else is probably going through? And that's why you get out of bed in the morning, is to help those people. So if you've been through a divorce and you've learned how to conquer all the things that come with that, and you're like, I got to tell other women who are going through this about what to do, right? Then that's one of the reasons you might get out of bed in the morning. Another thing to write about is, who do you serve, or who is your target audience? Now that you've been through this pivoting experience, who do you serve? Who's that target audience that you want to go after and serve? If it's because of your divorce experience, or the loss of a loved one, or maybe you had a loved one go through some mental illness, whatever it is, who do you feel like you can now serve because of that experience? What is the problem you're going to solve for that audience, for that person? Are you going to give them hope? Are you going to give them some solutions? What is that problem? Then write from all of those notes, you're going to write your story. So again, look at what happened prior to that event. What 2 or 3 things, and you maybe probably have 5 or 10 things that led up to it, but pick the 2 or 3 things that when you're telling someone, they're going to go, she can relate to me. He knows what I'm experiencing, right? And then keep that part that you're writing to 45 seconds. And you want to describe those things very well. You want people, the audience or the person you're telling to it, to relate and go, oh, that's exactly how I feel right now. They get it. And then what occurred to change those things? Tell about the experience, whatever it was. And like I said, it was a 5-minute thing. Maybe it was a week thing, whatever it was. What occurred to change the things? And then keep that to about 30 seconds. You don't need to make it long and drawn out. And then as a result of that event or episode, what 2 to 3 things changed? Again, if you go and look what you talk about prior to it, how did those 2 or 3 things change? And for a compelling story, explain how the things before the episode changed. Now, sometimes a story is such that it's more impactful that if you don't necessarily relate the pre and the after, and that's okay. But it does help when you're writing sometimes to keep those kind of balancing, like a balance seesaw sort of thing. Now, the 10th thing is after you have that written, practice and refine it until you have it to 2 minutes. So practice it in front of the mirror, practice it with a family member, practice it with a friend, and keep refining it. And, watch for people's response to your story. And then practice reading your story to a few friends, and then again, refine as needed. And then when you feel like it's really starting to touch people, and it really kind of summarizes you and what you do or what you want to do, then memorize your story until you can tell it without expanding it. And know that when you're telling it, you have to trust that you wrote the right thing for the right people. Often I find that people start expanding when they're telling people the story, because in your brain you're going, what if I'm not touching them? What if I'm not getting the response I thought I would? You never know what they're experiencing. So you have to trust that what you've written. And often when officially telling your story, do not change it until you're comfortable doing so, because doing so often results in missing the important message. I've seen that happen a lot with some of my clients. So just remember to trust your story to tell the message. That's why we put some work into it and we practice it, right? So would someone like to be a guinea pig, so to speak, or have me coach them through this a little bit? Any volunteers?
PJ, before you get going, there is one question
Okay.
for you.
Yeah, I can't bring up the chat, so thank you for looking at that.
Yeah, no worries. So it says, what if your pivotal point is very private?
Well, you have to kind of decide, is there a way you can write it? So like when I helped this person, it was really emotional for her because she had never told anyone about that assault she experienced on her graduation night. And, of course, when she's telling it to me, she gives me all the details, and we don't want to tell all that. Again, you don't want it to be too raw. So is there a way you can say it without being really raw and too private? Like in her case, she just said, I was assaulted. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, if the pivoting point is so critical to how you're going to serve people, you may want to just kind of keep working through it until you can tell it in a way in which you feel comfortable with it. And that's where I'm always happy to coach people through that and help them kind of figure out how to do that. Great question, though. Or maybe you want to just use a different story, a different pivot for a while.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah. Is anyone, I can't see everyone right now.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the gallery view? Does anyone want to volunteer?
Yeah, because I can come back to this PowerPoint. So.
Okay, great. And if not, I will be happy to volunteer if people would like to see, unless somebody else would like to walk through that.
It's always hard to be the person, right? Oh, Mary's raised her hand. That's awesome.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mary.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm not ready to walk through it, but I just had a
That's
question,
fine.
and I feel badly. Maybe I missed the very beginning thought
No
of this.
problem.
But just kind of a very basic question of kind of what is the purpose for your story, and who are you trying to influence or connect with your story, and does that change for your audience? And I apologize if you already.
Yeah, I did cover that, but it never hurts to hear things 2 or 3 times, right? Yeah, so your message is really about Oftentimes when we're in a network meeting or you're meeting people, you only have a couple of minutes to make an
Right.
impression. And you want to make an impression enough that they're going to go, I want to meet with that person. That person can help me, or that person can relate to me. And so by having this practice 2-minute story, it helps you do that. And I firmly believe that every single person has a message to share, that we go through life's experiences in such a way that there's people who are going through similar things, that once we learn from it, we can help them. And especially if you're running a business and entrepreneurship or whatever kind of business you have, that's the other reason to have a really good story, right?
So, so maybe if you'd like, actually, it is kind of an interesting thing to think about with my past story. So, if you have a moment, if that's okay, Karen.
Yeah, I'd love for you to do that, Mary. That'd be awesome.
So I run a jewelry business. I've been running my jewelry business for 20 years. And so the jewelry business basically started out when I had very young children and was kind of in that phase of like trying to get my life together and look like I had it all going on and I looked presentable to the world. And so what's interesting is that story was relevant 20 years ago. And in listening to you today, it's also kind of relevant to where we are right now of coming out of being locked down in our house of, you know, even today I'm going to meet with my coworkers at my other real life job. I haven't seen any of them in person in 15 months. And it's, what do I wear? What jewelry do I put on? I've been wearing yoga pants for 15 months. I actually I do have my hoodie on, at least it's cashmere, but I did put on earrings today. And so trying to adapt that story to a similar situation of, oh, I do have it going on with more than yoga pants today. And so it is kind of interesting. How do you take a story that worked at one point and now it's kind of a similar story, but in a different time now?
So one of the things I always tell people is often when we will go to write a story, especially as business owners, we try to write it for the audience rather than going inward and saying, what is my message? What was a pivoting moment in my life? Because our businesses will be successful if we're touching the right people. And no one can serve everyone. That's just how business is, right? So my question to you is, what's your message and experience that you want to share with people? Or what thing have you experienced that can help your prospective clients so the other thing is you can have two stories. You can have a story for people at your work and based on that job, or you can have a story for your jewelry business. So the question is, who do you really want to write a story for right now?
I think it's for my clients with my jewelry business. And what's interesting is kind of at the time 20 years ago, you know, there was a feeling of just being overwhelmed on a huge learning curve. And that isn't really, you know, the image you want to present to the world. You can, but it's kind of overwhelming to people. And so, you know, it is that, you know, through this, I want to look, you know, I want to look presentable. I want to feel good about myself. You know, I want to feel credible. And so by just kind of lifting yourself up a little of putting on a pair of earrings or, you know, and some lipstick, you just feel a little bit, I mean, it sounds so materialistic, but I do see it of, you know, now you feel a little bit better about yourself. And I think it's kind of, for me personally, with Karen possibly knows a fraction of what's going on in my life. It's kind of the same thing of just trying to balance a lot of people's different needs. And by just putting on a scarf and some earrings and some lipstick, that the face you put forward to the world shows that, you know, I still do have a little bit going on today.
So I'm going to pry a little bit here. So what experience in your life happened that you realized that just a little bit of makeup and some jewelry and some lipstick can move you forward, get you through feeling overwhelmed? What experience happened?
How long is your session, Karen?
So sum it up for me in like 2 minutes, but 3 sentences. Just give me a story.
In October, my husband was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. In January, my company was bought out by a much larger company. And so with very little money, I've been able to get $1.5 million distributed to about 1,000 frontline healthcare workers. I'm currently at a 5-hour doctor appointment with my daughter, helping her to figure out what her learning disabilities are and how she can feel better about herself, while I'm also working on the 1,000 team member pay raises. And jewelry, trying to breathe life support back into my jewelry business, and somehow helping my son appeal his decision to get into the UW computer science program and get that successfully done so that he doesn't have to move away and he can still go to the college right by our house. And my oldest son is doing great, which is a big celebration.
Good. So those are all great, Mary, those are all great experiences that got you to some point. What experience, what thing happened that made you realize when in the midst of all that overwhelm, all those experiences, what happened or what has happened in your life that has told you that if I just get up, put some makeup on, put some decent clothes on, put some lipstick on and some jewelry, that I can make it through it? Did you have an experience that did that?
I can see that for my whole family, that we just still need to stick to a normal routine. We can't get emotionally overwhelmed by any of these individual things, and that we just still have to be calm and available to each other, and just appear that it is normal. This is our normal, and hopefully it'll get better, but nothing is going to slow down, and that we just still have to take care of ourselves and present to the world that life is great, even though many parts of life really suck.
Mary, you have such a great message, and I really appreciate you sharing this, because there's a lot of people who are just so totally relating to what you're talking about. So again, I just want to ask, was there something that happened in the midst of all and this has probably been going on for this kind of lifestyle for years with all kinds of overwhelm, right? When did you realize that if I just keep things normal, if I get up and get dressed and look presentable and put some jewelry on, things are going to be okay?
I think it's sticking with just trying to maintain a normal routine of just kind of, self-care, normal routine. But I think it really goes into a deep request for people across my family, just verbally or non-verbally requesting that I had to be patient with them, that it couldn't be this hurry up, rush, that I just had to be patient and to be calm and to be available to listen to them.
So we'll use that as your experience, that you so what I'm hearing you say is that you realized that if you could just be calm, set some routines, put your makeup on, put your clothes on, put your lipstick and jewelry on, and maintain that routine, that you could get yourself and your family through the days. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Maybe through the next 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
yeah. The day is, I would say the day is we break it down into the next hour or till lunchtime or till dinner time. Good. But I will also say, I don't want to come across as some hero, that many days there isn't many days. There's no more jewelry or whatever. It's oh, we got a shower in today. We got a shower and we did exercise.
Yes. And Mary, so many women need to hear your message. They really do, because there's so many women experiencing that. So just in a nutshell, you've kind of told me, hey, you've written your story. You just need to now, draft it out. But basically, hey, and so let's just pick 2 or 3 things in the beginning. Hey, I'm Mary. I'm just going to give you a real rough draft off the top of my head. Hey, I'm Mary. And, for many months, I have a husband who's been dealing with cancer. I have a daughter who's got health issues that we still aren't able to diagnose. I have a son struggling to get in his program at the college, at his university. And I run a jewelry business. I also have a full-time job or part-time job, whatever it is. And I have a child with learning in disabilities that I try to work with a school. And I feel at times so overwhelmed that I wonder if I can even shower, that if I can get dinner made, if I can function. But I learned, and if I had more time, I'd help you refine this experience a little more. But I learned, so I'm just going to kind of make it up a little bit. I realized one day that if I could shower, if I could put on my clothes, if I could even get my makeup on and maybe some lipstick and my jewelry, that then the rest of the day would be okay. And that I could have patience with each of my family members and help them through their thing. And I know going forward that as I can teach people to take care, you spend a few minutes each day taking care of yourself, it helps other people, especially those close to you that you're helping. So it's kind of a nutshell. And so I'm wondering, is your message to people to just take a few minutes each day and take care of themselves so that they can be more patient in helping with those around them? Is that what you're trying to tell people?
I think so. Yeah, that you want some part of your life that you can control and that's organized. And so, maybe it's not even picking out the entire full-on power outfit. It's more of just, I like this blouse and this pair of earrings and they make me feel special and fun again. And that even if I wear them 3 days a week, that's enough.
So I think you have your message. And again, you could literally write a couple of stories from this. You could play a little more on the jewelry for your jewelry business. Or if you want to just be there to serve and help other women who are going through hard times, you could not play on the jewelry part and just play on, just spending a few minutes each day taking care of yourself. So I think you have a message that so needs to be heard. And you very quickly gave me, again, you would just summarize that down to 45 seconds, all those things. You don't have to go too much into detail, but enough that people, I think everybody on this call, when you went through that list, was like, oh, wow, I want to connect with Mary, right? Don't we all want to spend a few minutes with Mary and say, how are you doing this?
Yeah.
What are you learning from all this? Because I want to learn from it. And that's what you want your 2-minute story to be, is that for when people hear it, they go, oh, man, I got to talk to her. Can we, I know you're busy. Do you have 2 minutes? You have 15 minutes for a Zoom call or something that they're going to connect with you and they're going to remember you. That's the other thing, is you want your 2-minute story in such a way so that they remember you and they go, the next time they see you at the next meeting or on another Zoom call or somewhere, they're like, oh yeah, Mary, she's got this story and about taking care of yourself. I want to connect with her. That's right. So I hope that was helpful.
Very, thank you, PJ.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I'm trying to breathe life support back into my business. So it's like,
Yep.
How do I do that?
Well, start with the story, because what you can do, for those of you who missed it, when you have this story refined, what's nice about it is you can use that same story, massage maybe a little bit for your LinkedIn profile or your Instagram profile, or wherever, if somebody wants a bio, you just, strip that down a little bit. So it's kind of, to me, the core of, before you do all your other branding, you kind of have to know your story. So now, Karen, did you have a comment?
No, PJ, I'm not sure where you are in your
Yeah, we're fine.
here. Would you have time for another volunteer? Because I know Heather Fink had said she would love to volunteer.
Yeah, I think that would be great, Heather. If you don't mind turning on your video. Can you turn on your video, Heather? Because I'd love to see your face.
Oh. Well, we've got 2 Heathers here.
Oh, 2 Heathers.
Yes.
Oh, there's Heather Fink. Okay, are you the one? Okay, great. Sorry, I was looking like mid-screen, right?
I know. I realized there was 2 Heathers, and I thought, I wonder, if I have another device but I didn't.
No, that's great, Heather.
Another Heather. But I'm happy to do it another day. I mean, just put it out there.
No, I
So
would love
don't
to.
wanna-
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
again, let's go through the
I
question.
loved, I
What
loved hearing Mary's and
okay.
everything you did thus far.
So what experience have you had in your life that you feel that gives you a message?
Well, I have a beauty brand, and I've really loved hearing everything we're talking about, because that's part of my messaging for my brand, and that pivotal moment for me. And I wrote some notes too, because I added something to the story that I've never had before, which was how I felt as a young girl. So my story that I currently have for my brand is that I believe in the transformative power of beauty. As a little girl, I took my grandmother's nail polish. It was a bright red little Q-Tex bottle of nail polish. I actually found a picture of. You guys probably remember these Q-Tex bottles from like the 70s. And I took it and I polished my lips. Like, I painted my lips with her nail polish. It was a bright red color. And I remember looking in the mirror and feeling that transformation, and then I always say, don't try that at home because it wasn't the best idea. But what I was missing, I think, and if that's even compelling at all, there might be more missing, but is how I felt before that. I felt invisible and plain as a little girl. And I didn't have that in my story at all. And I think that's something that even today, so then I sort of, and then I went and I spent 30 years developing beauty products for big companies. So, and I always brought that back to my grandmom and did her nails and brought her products. And I love how it makes people feel special. So I feel like that was my mission through my whole life has been, I feel so rewarded by seeing and how people feel and respond to beauty products. I brought my mother-in-law the first, body lotions I ever made for Victoria's Secret, and saw how that made her feel special, and I never realized people always say, oh, well, it's not curing cancer. It's like, yeah, well, it is special though, in a way, it makes you feel, and what Mary just explained. So I mean, I don't know. I have that story, and then that's really why I created the brand, was to bring that transformative power of beauty to others. But one of the things I think I'm also missing is I always said it was for everyone. I said it's sexy beauty for everyone. But you reminded me it can be for everyone. So who's it for? Is it for a woman as I am in my 50s who feels invisible again? I feel like that little girl, that no one, that if I go out in public, I don't get whistled at, or, like in my 20s, it was a whole different thing. And so I kind of feel that a little bit again. I still put on and I talk about, I don't go out the door without putting on my lipstick. It's a suit of confidence armor for me.
So Heather, can I ask you a couple more questions just for the sake of time?
Yeah.
So it almost sounds to me like you've had two episodes that lead to this message you have. You had the episode when you were a little girl, realizing that some lipstick and some nail polish or lotion could really change somebody's life,
Right.
especially someone who felt invisible or felt plain or felt like they weren't special. And then I think somewhere I'm kind of assuming, again, we don't have a lot of time to go through everything, but I'm assuming that you've spent these years working in beauty for Victoria's Secret. I don't know if there were other companies developing beauty products. When was it that you realized I can be more powerful if I make my own?
Well,
Was there experience around that?
yeah, and I talk about it. I lost my job. I lost my job in corporate. I couldn't get another job. I spent a year trying, and then I finally just started doing what I'm passionate about again, and came up with a lipstick, and then built on that.
So do you see that the lost job is really the pivoting experience?
Okay.
I mean, yes, you had a early one that kind of led you to your career, right?
Mhm.
But the real pivoting experience that got you to today, where you're selling your own beauty products, you're trying, and your real message is that you want people, you don't want women to ever feel invisible, plain, or not special.
Right.
And your message is one of the ways to do that is to put some lipstick on, to put some lotion on, to put some makeup on.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really your message. So again, your pre part can be that part leading up where, hey, and again, you got to do this in 45 seconds. So you got to narrow it down. Like when I was a little girl, and I love this story about putting that nail polish on your lips. I think you've got to tell that, because who's not going to lean forward and go, you got to tell me more about this, right? And you always know you've got your message good when you're telling it to someone and they start leaning in. That's when you're like, oh, they're interested, right? So I would just quickly, in one short sentence, say that. I would say, and that led me to 30 years with corporate cosmetic companies or company.
Mhm.
And if it's just Victoria's Secret, you might even mention that, because that gives you some, like, I leaned in when you said that. I'm like, oh, she knows what she's doing here. And then I got to this point where I was feeling good about helping, making great products to help people feel visible and special. But then I lost my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I could make my own. And
It's
I could
interesting.
reach
I
out.
actually felt invisible in the workforce again.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was an age, I just felt like I was redundant or invisible again.
Yeah. So I would actually put that in your 30 seconds of your pivot.
Okay.
There was a moment where I realized, oh, I'm feeling invisible. Just as that little girl, I feel invisible. I feel plain again.
Right.
And then I realized I could make my own products and I could reach out in my own way, tell my story, and help other women not ever feel invisible. Now, I don't know, my guess is the other women on here are like, oh man, Heather, we need to talk, because all of us feel invisible at sometimes. We all feel plain sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved, Mary's story about, what she's dealing with and putting that on. You kind of have a similar story, only with a different product.
Right.
And then what you want to do is on that ending part, the last 45 seconds, is maybe talk about how one or two of your products and how that's made women change, or just something where they're like, because by the time you get to that pivot, you've got people going, all right, what's your phone number, Heather? Right? But it's that lasting point. And then you want to come up, you always want to finish your message with that kind of like in my friend's, this client, her last line is, I just felt relief. So you might finish your message off with, I no longer feel invisible or plain, and I don't want any woman to ever feel it. And that's the end of your story. Does that kind of help? I mean, we kind of nailed that down.
I love it. It really brings it to life.
Yeah, powerful story.
Powerful
Story. So I'm going to just flip back to my PowerPoint here for a minute so we can finish up, because we're nearing the end here. And like I said, Karen has emailed you a link to a 2-page PDF that has all those questions, has all the things I went over about your story in the beginning. But I do want to just cover a couple other things. I'd love to help you. That I do spend a lot of my time helping other people write their story. And what I do when we meet is we have a 45-minute discovery call that includes drafting your story. Like, we've just compressed this down, but we spend 45 minutes really, you kind of telling me everything. And then you polish it, you refine it. And then we have a 15-minute follow-up call so that I can help you kind of refine it some more and hear you say it 3 or 4 times. So normally I charge people $150 for something like that. But for all of you, I'm happy to do it for you for $99. And if you purchase it by June 1st, it means you don't have to do it by June 1st. You just have to get it on my books by then, because I'd love to help you tell your story. And I hope you see today that by having your story refined, you find just that right audience. And it gives you a reason to get up in the morning when you're serving the right people, right? And then this is my phone number and my email. And if you just want to go ahead and schedule it right now, there's a link to connect. So if you want to take a picture of the screen, you can do that. I'd love to help each of you spend, and you know, we compressed it for these couple, for Heather and Mary today, but I'd love to spend more time helping you kind of drag that out and do that for you. Now, here's a bonus. I always like throwing in a bonus at the end. When you get your story finished, sometimes when we're in a situation like a network meeting, or we walk up to somebody and you want to introduce yourself, like, you know, Danny might walk up and go, "Hi, I'm Danny Green and I'm with XYZ," you know. But imagine if you could take 5 seconds, because that's about all this takes, and you could say, and I'll give you my example. I say, "Hi, I'm PJ Hanks, and my gift is teaching people in a simple way about wellness and about business. And I'm here to help others find hope, discover solutions, and achieve goals." So I took my story, and you can write, you know, take that 2-minute story down to a really quick introduction of yourself. So again, so that people just go, "Oh, hi. You're like, oh, I think I could relate to her. I want to learn more." And the easiest ways to do that is with these 3 things. I am so-and-so, my gift or my gifts are, and I'm here to, and this is where you kind of bring that message in from your story. So in your case, Heather, you could say, you know, "I'm Heather. My gifts are helping women feel noticed, beautiful through skin, you know, through a beauty line that I've developed. And I'm here to make sure that you don't feel invisible and that you feel beautiful." Now, wouldn't you all want to talk to Heather if she said that to you?
Mhm.
Right? So this is just a quick little bonus thing on how to help you. And this is not in the handout, so feel free to write this down, take a picture, whatever. But I am more than happy to help any of you, because all of you have important messages to serve people. And it's just such a joy when you're serving the right people. And too often when we want to do our stories, we feel like we have to make it fit for everybody, and you don't. If you just tell your message, the right people will come to you, and you'll have a very successful business, and you'll feel that you're fulfilled because you're doing what you feel like you need to be doing. So any last minute questions as we wrap up here? I'll turn off the share here.
Thank you, PJ. This was fabulous. Does anyone have any questions? I know PJ has to hop off right at 11, but ladies, if you want to hang out just for a few minutes afterwards and introduce yourself so we can all say hello to each other, you're welcome to do that. I'll be here. Let's see. Looks like we have one new message. Oh, just saying thank you. Anyone have a question for PJ? This was fabulous. Even just that bonus. I am here. I've never talked about it, that my gifts are. And this was super helpful, PJ. Thank you so much. Lovely. So like you said too, that this will all be sent to you as well. So this is being recorded.